I'm here.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Is it okay if I have restrictions on people?
Yeah. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Let me turn that off. Okay. So photosynthesis is chapter 10. And this stuff should be not as difficult. Oh, thank you. All right. So we talked about heterotrophs and autotrophs. Heterotrophs have to take in some sort of food source because they cannot make their own organic compounds, obviously. So we call these consumers. All right. They convert or make their ATP. They convert the energy in these organic compounds if they break it down, and you need to use them as such. They make ATP through cell respiration. Autotrophs are organisms like plants. There's other autotrophs, there's chemoautotrophs, and there's photoautotrophs that aren't necessarily plants, like algae. But anyways, they will produce their own organic compounds. Don't say energy, say their own organic compounds. I need to change that. So they make their own carbon compounds. We call these the producers. And they use the energy, the photoautotrophs, okay, use the energy of the sun to convert CO2 basically and it eventually into a 3-carbon sugar compound.
You said
All right.
say what?
They make their own organic compounds. So, like I said, there's also chemoautotrophs that use the energy in chemical compounds. So, not all autotrophs use the energy from the sun. I want you to make sure you understand that. So, we're talking about photoautotrophs here. Okay? Chapter 10, yeah. Okay. They can also start. So, the direct product of photosynthesis is a 3-carbon sugar called DQP. We're talking about it. They can convert that into glucose just by basically combining 2 of them together. They can use that DQP to make other organic compounds. It's basically a carbon skeleton, and they can go from there to make any of their organic compounds that they need. Amino acids, fatty acids, whatever. Okay, nucleotides. But they can also then break down the glucose they make from there to make ATP for cellular work. So it's important to understand that plants also have mitochondria because they also need to make ATP for cellular work. Yes.
You know, like how people can, and animals can like overeat and like they get like bloated and bloated. Can that happen with plants? No, they won't have a tendency to do that because they rely on like diffusion. Basically an act of transport, and no. I won't say no, but I've never heard of that before. You can overwater a plant, but just not taking in the water. You basically suffocate the root. It relies on air pockets around the roots to get oxygen because the roots still have to undergo cell respiration.
So,
What we doing like this is only photosynthesis or whatever.
Photoautotrophs. Yeah, for the sun. There's chemoautotrophs that use like hydrogen sulfide and stuff. Yeah.
Is there a specific reason why like animals haven't evolved to use photosynthesis?
Well, there's no selection structure,
Okay, so we just get it.
right? Yeah.
So that would be cool.
What if we genetically alter ourselves?
So
What if we put chloroplast inside of
That's what I'm
ourselves?
saying. Could we genetically alter ourselves? We become really green. We'd be green people.
Not all of them.
No,
you
They put it in their DNA.
A lot of it's actually released. But some of it is, yeah. They don't need that much. A lot of it is. Okay, so the process is called photosynthesis. And autotrophs and heterotrophs depend on each other. Okay, photosynthesis, the organic compounds produced by autotrophs are the ones that are then eaten or utilized by heterotrophs. Producers at the bottom of the food chain, that's why. Okay. So here is the equation for cell respiration. And if you notice, remember, so slowly through all those steps, that glucose molecule was slowly oxidized. The electrons were slowly taken off, and the energy that they lost through that whole ETC and all that was used to eventually generate ATP. At the end, we produce carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a fully oxidized molecule. There is no more energy, like there's no more electrons and hydrogens left on there, so it's just released as a waste product. If you look at the equation for photosynthesis, it is basically the opposite. So you start with carbon dioxide, fully oxidized. What do you have to do? The process of photosynthesis, it reduces the CO2 over a series of steps to give it electrons, give it hydrogens, and eventually you produce sugars. Okay? So it's highly endergonic, requires a lot of energy. Delta G would be what? Positive, yes. So, again, there was only one arrow on like the equation for cell respiration. In reality, there's many, many, many steps. So it should be like a lot of arrows. Same thing for photosynthesis. It shows one arrow. This is the overall equation, but there's many, 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 many steps for this. And like I said, for photoautotrophs, we use the energy from the sun to drive this. So now ATP is made in photosynthesis, but it's also used in photosynthesis. The ATP produced in photosynthesis is used directly to make the sugar. So we don't put ATP as a reactant nor a product because it's not an overall product. Some is made, but then it's used to make the eventual sugar. Does that make sense? There's no net production, right? Yeah, they kind of. Again, we're not showing heat energy loss. Something is always lost with every single reaction. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about plants and plant structure. Y'all don't really learn. I don't even know when the last time y'all learned about plants was. Elementary, middle school, maybe? Long time ago. Yeah. And we used to have a giant unit on plants in bio, and AP bio, but they actually deleted a lot of it. So I don't really talk about it so much anymore. I will periodically because I actually still think it's important for you to know. But anyway, we'll talk a little bit today about it. So plants need to have a way to collect energy from the sun. And they have to have a way to transform it into the chemical energy of sugars. Okay, they have to have a way to store the energy in a stable form. So that would be the sugars. Okay. They need to get the atoms from the environment that they need to build all the other organic compounds. So what else? There's C and O's and H's in glucose. But what other atoms do they need to build, like amino acids or phosphate? What else? Nitrogen. There's others, but that's good for now. Okay, good. So they need a lot of things. So the CH and O we talked about, nitrogen, phosphates, and potassium, sulfur, and magnesium. A lot of things. Where do they get that from? Where do they get those from? The soil. Yeah, they get it from the soil. Take it up through their roots. Where do they say? Where does the CO2 come from? The air, right? Okay, good. And then the water comes from the roots, the ground. Okay, good. All right. And then they have to be able to make all their organic compounds. And as long as they have that stuff, they can. And these little compounds are in the water droplet because they take in those through the soil solution is what it's called, the water around the roots. All right, so this is a generalized structure of a plant. Plants are cool for a lot of reasons. One, they have to be able to adapt to where they live. They can't get up and run away from predators. They're stuck. So they have to have adaptations to be able to fend off predators. So sometimes plants have thorns, and sometimes they have spikes, sometimes they have poisonous compounds in the central vacuoles, like this red hot, ghost chili pepper, those ghost peppers.
Carolina Reaper.
Yeah, you know, that has actually evolved as a defense mechanism for those plants. When they eat it, you're like, oh, I might want to eat it again.
Yeah. I have 6 of them in my house. I'm about to. I'll do it.
Everyone take it back to play now.
Y'all gonna see me in the hospital? I'll be the next day.
You only come back, you bring back X-rays.
Plants also, they live in 2 very different environments. They live in an above ground environment where they grow against gravity. We call it the shoot system. So everything up there on this picture that's green. Okay, and then there's the root system. The root system grows underground. The roots grow like with gravity, right? The shoot system is exposed to it's exposed to the air, it's exposed to wind, things like that. The roots don't get any sun at all, okay? And the root system directly depends on the shoot system for sugars. And the shoot system directly depends on the root system for all those other minerals and water and stuff. Yeah.
I don't know how legit this is, but currently in this university, these kids took a tree and they flipped it upside down and replanted it. So now the leaves are in the ground and the roots are up there.
Right.
Just to show how often plants work.
Yeah.
Because the tree was fine.
Okay, so plants also, I don't really know about that, but plants are the only organisms also that have completely stem cell tissue their entire lifetime. So that's probably what contributed to that. These little, have you ever seen, look right there, see that little tiny bud thing right there? Yeah, okay. There's something called the apical bud, and then there's these axillary buds. And then there's we call meristematic tissue. There's stem cells right there that are basically going to be inhibited until if you cut off the top of this plant, it's going to start growing again. So for their entire lives, they keep stem cell tissue that can basically differentiate into anything. That's how you can root a plant. Plants are pretty cool, but I know. Anyways, okay, so let's talk more about it. So they get the sunlight. What do you think the function of leaves are? Leaves are huge surface area. They're giant solar collectors, is what they are. What?
They're solar.
Oh yeah, they're like solar panels, kind of. Okay, so they take in sun. The gases, so the CO2 also comes in through the leaves. There's an opening in the leaves called stomata. Stomates is plural. Or stomata. A stomate is singular. But anyways, they look like, I have a slide on them in a minute. And that's where the gases come in. So the CO2 comes in and the O2 will leave through the stomata. Yeah, I'll show you a picture on the next slide. The water comes from the soil solution. Okay, the roots will bring it in. And the nutrients also will come in from that soil solution. Plants will undergo active transport a lot of times in the soil solution to get in certain minerals, but also allow water to follow via osmosis. Or they'll utilize their proton pumps to develop a gradient. Anyway, we'll talk about that stuff later. And plants are similar to animals, well, sort of-ish, in that they have tissue, conductive tissue, where these solutions will flow through. Okay, it's called xylem and phloem.
Oh yeah.
Xylem is X-Y-L-E-M. Okay, xylem up and phloem down. Xylem is what the soil solution comes up through. Xylem is like the water and the minerals that comes up from the roots to the rest of the plant. And the phloem, P-H-L-O-E-M. P-H is the F sound. The phloem is what the sugar solution. So like maple syrup. Have you ever seen a maple syrup tree? Like a maple tree, they stick this thing into the bark, and it's basically you're collecting the phloem from that tree. You're taking its sugar solution, not all of it, or else you'd kill it. But anyway, okay. This is the stomata. or a stomach.
Filters out like stuff out of their water.
Yeah. When I see this picture, it reminds me of the Little Shop of Horrors. Does anybody know?
Yes.
Reminds you of a what?
Oh God, do you know, Leia? Little Shop of Horrors. You're like a theater person. Oh.
We didn't do a lot of, I've heard the thing that I did do was I ripped open the leaves and I looked at them under the microscope. And I look at the stoma and it looks like really good.
Oh, that's an old, never seen that before.
Little Shop. Okay, I don't know why, but that reminds me of the plants in the Little Shop of Horrors. Anyway, y'all never. Okay. Yeah, Seymour. It's like this guy who grows this plant, but he wants to eat people. Anyway.
That's the funniest thing.
It's really funny.
That looks like something from VeggieTales.
But it was originally, like, I've seen a number of plays, like people, it's like a play. It's really funny.
It's very chill. Yeah. That like goes around each other.
I don't know. I don't know about VeggieTales. I've never seen VeggieTales.
What? Is it correct?
I've never seen it. I don't know.
Look at it right now.
No.
All
right. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not gonna look it up. All right. So stomata, basically, the stomata itself is the opening. The cells that line the opening. So on this picture, these little like things that look like lima beans, they are called guard cells. Okay. We will talk about those later in chapter 38. It's the transpiration chapter. We'll do that later. But anyways, this is a cross section of a leaf. You need to be able to understand this. Okay, up at the top we have epidermal tissue. And then this little line at the very outside is called the cuticle. It's waxy substance that helps prevent the plant from desiccating or dehydrating, but it also serves as a protection against like infection and stuff like that. Anyways, these cells are called mesophyll cells. These little cells inside here. The mesophyll cells are where we have a lot of the chloroplasts and where a lot of the photosynthesis takes place. This is part of the tissue of the plant, the vascular tissue, the xylem and phloem, okay, are in here, in these little vessels. So, that's that. Anyway. The stomata usually are on the bottom part of a leaf.
Because
You do.
because the top part is like used for photosynthesis, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, not necessarily. Like all these green cells in here, the mesophyll cells, these are all mesophyll cells. They have a lot of chloroplasts. So it's the whole leaf. But the top part is used to absorb the photons. So that's fine. Okay. So let's look at the structure of a chloroplast. We've looked at it before. Chloroplasts are interesting. They actually have three membranes. The outer two membranes are smooth and not highly convoluted. The third membrane in the middle is called the thylakoid membrane. It's in this picture. It looks like the green stuff. They're basically like pita breads that are stacked on top of each other. They're hollow. They're all interconnected too. Okay? Thylakoid. Oh yeah. Thylakoid. There's how you spell thylakoid, okay? The thylakoids are the green things. Now the stacks of thylakoids are called grana. Right there, grana. Okay, so a stack of them, like a stack of pancakes, is called a grana. Granome is one stack. All right, there's fluid surrounding these thylakoids on the outside of the thylakoids. It's called the stroma. The stroma in a chloroplast is where the chloroplast DNA is located and the ribosome. Okay. The thylakoid membranes themselves are where we have the chlorophyll. The chlorophyll is what makes plants look green because they're absorbing all the wavelengths of light except for green, right? So that's why it looks green. Yeah. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Green is not a photon. The energy that photon has is not, well, it's just not the type that's used to excite the electrons on the photosystems 1 and 2. We'll talk about it. Hold on. All right. Yep, we'll talk about all that. There's ETCs inside the thylakoid membrane, and there's ATP synthase in the thylakoid membrane. We'll talk about them later. No, there's no. Remember, the ATP made in photosynthesis is used in photosynthesis. Yeah. So it all just stays in here. So they have their own ATP synthase because the ATP actually produced in photosynthesis is used in the stroma. So it's made anyway. Talk about it. So here's another drawing of a chloroplast. So the green is our thylakoid membrane. What happens is interesting. There's hydrogen ions that are built up inside the thylakoid membrane. And then they flow out of the thylakoid membrane into the stroma, and they produce ATP in the stroma. Yeah. It's very similar to what happens in mitochondria in terms of the process. The mechanics of it are just the same. Oh, all right, photosynthesis involves, and I'm going to say this and I'll be done. This is a good picture to look at to remember. Oh, I can't wait to get to genetics. No, I can't wait. I know. I want to see if this picture is a little bit basically the same. Okay, yeah. So this is like a picture to study from. The photosynthesis includes what we call the light reactions in the Calvin cycle. Okay, the light reactions occur in the thylakoids and in the thylakoid space, and the Calvin cycle occurs in the stroma. Now notice there's inputs and outputs in here. So water and light energy are used by the light reactions, and oxygen is an output. Oxygen will just leave. It's a byproduct of photosynthesis. It just diffuses out. Carbon dioxide is used directly by the Calvin cycle, and the output is a sugar. It's actually a 3-carbon sugar. Now notice on here we also make ATP. Oh, and look, NADPH. What do you think that is?
Phosphate.
Oh, God. All right, what's its function?
Electron.
It's an electron carrier. Very similar to NADH and FADH2. It's just an electron carrier. But notice they're in here inside because they're produced, but then they're also used. They're produced by the light reactions, used by the Calvin cycle. They're just recycled over and over. Well, stop. Okay. Finish that stuff tonight, and chapter 10, notes quiz tomorrow.
There's an incorrect answer you said.
Which one?
Number 37.
Let me see it. Stop this. Yeah.